Hello, welcome to the shop. I just ordered from Veritas or Lee Valley the Bevel Up #1 bench plane that they have recently come out with. I was excited to see what it was like and see how the quality was and everything. And I've run a few tests with it. Obviously, you can see, trying to see how it does on end grain and straight grain. Before I get into those and show you those tests and the comparisons, I'm going to be comparing it with a Stanley #1 and the Lee Nielsen #1 and the Wood River. But first I want to talk to you about the packaging. I think this is the only place that they really fell short a little bit. And that's only on the basis of a collector's dream, which is to keep a plane with its original packaging. This is what it came in. Of course, it was packed in a Lee Valley box. This is the receipt that came in the box. Very, very good price compared to some of the other ones that are coming out these days. I thought the price was exceptional. So I was a little worried about the quality, but that was not an issue, as I'll point out to you in a little bit. Came with a little instruction booklet, but it came with this box here, which I didn't really like because the label goes over the outside of this box. You can't take the piece out of the box regularly without damaging this label, and I wanted to keep the label intact and the box intact. So what I did was I cut the back of the box and I removed it from the bottom, and that's fine, but this is not a particularly nice packaging as far as I'm concerned, and maybe not even worthy of saving, but I'm going to do that nevertheless because I find that planes that are resold later in their original packaging generally will get a higher value. In this case, I'm not really sure on it, and I don't really intend on selling this plane at all. I will keep it with my collection of #1s and my smaller planes and blocks. But here it is. Here's the plane. Now this is a Stanley #1. This is the Lee Nielsen. This is the Wood River. And this is the new Veritas. I think it's really a nice design. The quality of everything, including the finishing, is very nice. And as you all know, I can be a little picky on that. Dealing with them about the shooting board plane was difficult. There were a lot of issues in the finish, but that does not seem to have been passed on to this plane. It's a nice small plane. It takes a little bit of getting used to this sort of offset handle compared to a normal #1, but what it allows is a lot more hand grip and freedom, because this doesn't connect. It's an open handle. The angle of it is a little more upright than I'd like, but it's not terrible. But I found that my tendency was having to push my arm down in this direction as I go forward rather than just a forward movement like that. I had to keep some rear pressure. Not a big deal at all. And as well, it was very comfortable to hold like this and use the plane like that, and not even holding tightly to this. I find most of these smaller planes, you don't really want to exert that much pressure, and you don't really need to if the blade's sharp, the angle's good, and the bottom is flat. So let me show you a few more things about this plane where it supersedes these others. We'll come in for a close-up. So here you see the Veritas #1 next to the Stanley Bailey #1. First of all, the price differential is obscene when you start thinking about the difference in the cost between a collector piece like this Stanley #1 or this Veritas. The Stanley #1 I use all the time. I like it. I like it better than the Wood River and the Lee Nielsen, but you can watch my other video to see that comparison and how I felt about it. Now, this video is not really about the Stanley #1. I just wanted you to be able to see some of the differences, because this is a Bailey style And this is an all-new design by Veritas. And I think it's a very interesting plane, and it's got some great features. Number one, the low angle of the blade compared to this regular bench plane high angle really should work better on end grain, and we'll test that out. It's also a bevel up plane, so the bevel is actually up as opposed to the way these are in the Baileys. The other interesting thing is that what they did was on this little one, they included a typical feature of their other planes, which are these side set screws on each side to maintain centering of your blade. And that's a big plus because they use a Norris style adjuster on their blades, which will extend the blade in or withdraw it, but it also acts as the angle lever for changing the angle of the blade. The other great thing about this plane is, besides the finish on the wood that I'm going to talk about in a second, but it has an adjustable throat. You can see that here on the side. Here is the plate inside that adjusts, and it's interesting because it isn't the typical type where this would be cut straight forward and the whole front of the toe would move out and in, but it's actually a captured plate, and it really works very smoothly. And the nice thing about it is that you can then close that mouth down, that opening in front of your blade, down to a whisper, and that really helps as well with the end grain. Here's the hole for the set screw, which they didn't use an Allen wrench. They used a straight driver on that. So I think that's good because they're a lot easier to grab in the shop than keeping the exact Allen wrench for it with it at all times. The angle of the line on the side is really nice. This sweep I find very elegant. Similar to their larger ones, similar to the 62. Their low-angle bevel-up jack plane, very nice, with this extension coming off here. The finish on the tote and the knob is very nice. It's a matte finish, very smooth and very rich looking. I really appreciate that. No flaws in the finish at all. And the handle, instead of having a through bolt like the Stanleys do, it has this bolt down here that goes up in for removing it, although I don't see any reason to, but you could tighten it up with that. It works very well. Nice. The other thing that it has that they have on their 62 is this little piece here, this little feature here. The way that the front opens is you loosen this, and then this will allow this movement here to open and close the mouth. And this feature inside here is an adjustable bolt that goes in, and it prevents you from opening this and bringing it too far back to the point that it actually touches the blade. So there's just a fine line there, and that stops you from slamming into the blade. Hopefully you should be dealing with it a bit more delicately than that anyway, but you can see there's the gap through there. I think that's a smart improvement. These two centering screws that go in on each side to keep the blade centered is also very good, and it's a nice answer to the misfortunes, as far as I'm concerned, of the Norris adjuster. I prefer two adjusters, but this solves that issue of when you're advancing the blade. Oftentimes with the Norris adjuster, you can get the blade out of square. So those two screws serve a great purpose. Everything is machined very nicely. Everything is clean and well done, and I can't find any flaws in the manufacturing. And I was glad to see that after the issue with the shooting plane. So let's now do some comparisons of this with the other planes, albeit I think that it might be a little unfair comparison because this is such a low angle. I guess I could also throw in a comparison to a Stanley 60.5 block plane, but it might be a more similar comparison. But we'll go on and we'll try it out. So we're going to be trying it out first on just a simple soft piece of pine and see how it does, and we're going with the grain here. I should point out that the blade was very sharp when I received it, and that was nice. I did a couple of cuts, but it didn't impress me, so I went ahead, as the instructions say, to go ahead and hone it, and I did, and I set it up the way I think I like it. And basically that was very easy, not difficult at all. Took a little bit of tweaking in and out until I got it to where I thought it took a good shaving and left a clean finish. So let's try it out. So we're going to just go straight ahead on this piece of pine, and I've got it set fairly thin for a shaving, and we'll test it out. Now, I don't like my thumb hitting that, and it actually moved that. So we'll tighten that up, and we'll see if we can keep that tighter. Let's see again. So let me start this by saying that I needed to tune all of these up and get the blades parallel with the throat and with the bed. And in doing that, in all of three of these, I use a leather mallet to tap the blades because there's no lateral adjuster. This new one has a lateral adjuster. So it's interesting. I can't attest to it being a real lifesaver, but it was nice to not have to tap it, and you'd have difficulty tapping the blade anyway because the plane is in the way of it. Whereas these blades extend so much further, you can also see that you have a much smaller blade as far as length is concerned. But that's neither here nor there either. So that's just an issue that you have to deal with. I guess they could have extended the Norris adjuster back and made the blade a little longer to give you more life, but I don't see that as a make or break item. But it's nice to have the lateral adjuster here and the advancement. These, of course, do have the typical Bailey advancement. And on the Wood River, and all three, the Lie-Nielsen, the Wood River, they don't have the adjustable throat. So in this case, on flat smooth wood, straight grain, and again it's pine, I can try to hold it this way, and I think that works fine. It just feels a little odd. My tendency is to want to hold it this way, and that's with my thumb here, this on the side, and this resting up here, really doing nothing but staying out of the way. I tend to keep a finger underneath here as a guide for the front of my plane and a thumb on the top for the downward pressure, rather than doing this, because when I do this, my thumb is in the way of the shaving, and it's in the way of my view. So my tendency is to always hold almost any plane in this direction. But you see I'm getting a fine shaving as with the Stanley No. 1. Again, I hold it the same way, like that. I've got this set to a much finer shaving, but you can see that it works fine as well, but I knew that. I can't say it's any more or less comfortable than the Lie-Nielsen. It's about the same. Here's the, or not the Lie-Nielsen, the Veritas. Here's the Lie-Nielsen. Good clean shaving. I set it a little bit deeper than the Veritas. If I hold it straight like that, still a good shaving. And the Wood River, little finer shaving. That's just in me how I set the blade, so that's neither here nor there as far as the quality. But this one here, it's a little longer than these. The body length is in itself longer, and then with the extension here of the handle, it brings it even further back. It's wider than the Wood River. Certainly we'll compare it with the Stanley #1. Here you can see it's quite a bit wider, although I think the blade is just a hair wider, but the base is exceptionally wider, and the length is longer, plus with this extension like a squirrel tail almost style. But it works very well. No issue on the straight grain. So that's pine. Let's try something a little harder. This is some spalted maple. We'll see how they do on that. Again, straight grain. There's some cutouts here. I don't think that matters. On the maple, this cut, the depth that I've got this set at is really too much. It's cutting fine, but I really don't want to take that big a cut, and I really can't for the life of me tell you why some woods require a deeper cut and others require a shallower one. I do like that I'm able to adjust this on the fly with my finger down here, and I don't have to deal with the, here's the Norris adjuster. If I'm coming here, you see I wouldn't do that. I'd have to stop and adjust it. We'll see how this does on the maple. Beautiful cut. I always like to start with the blade retracted and then advance forward as I go to where I get a good shaving. And you can see there again, I'm adjusting it as I go. So all three of those work fine, and this one here I think is doing an excellent job. So I'm pleased with that. So that's straight grain, softwood and pretty hardwood. So let's try some end grain and see how it does. We'll put this in the vise, and we'll have to take these cuts way back on the end grain. Here's the Stanley #1, and I'm putting it on a skew. I'm cutting it on the skew because it's more of a slicing action. If I do this, it's a very blunt cut, and I know there's some people that use this angle of blade for shooting plane with a 5.5, but frankly I don't like it. I prefer cutting it on a skew like this, and I find I get a better slice cut. But that's nice, a fair shaving. Let's see the Wood River, and I haven't made adjustments between the end grain and the soft and the long grain, so that's pretty nice as well. It's pretty smooth, and I'm getting good shavings. And this is comparable in price to the Veritas. Lie-Nielsen's more, I think, and the certainly the #1 is more. But so here's the Veritas, on the end grain, and we'll go straight across it because of the low angle. Well, it's not doing as well, so I'm going to tighten up this throat here and see if that is will correct the issue. Also, it appears that I think the blade is, with the advancement, a little out of square. So see if we can correct that. I want the blade to go this way more, so I'm going to loosen this one, and I'm going to loosen this, and then I'm going to tighten this one here. Tighten this up, loosen the throat, and bring it back. So now I just have a hairline opening, but it appears the blade is good and square. Bring this forward. You want to always, whenever you're cutting anything with a plane, is always leave the blade in an advanced position rather than back. So now I'm getting a very fine shaving. If I skew it, I'm getting a very super fine shaving there. So here's a piece of oak, straight grain. Here's the number one. Gives a good shaving. The Lee Nielsen. Nice. Now, Wood River. Those are all the higher angle. Now we'll see how this does. It's a little awkward in the holding of it, but it's not terrible, and it gives a good shaving. I think it's a worthwhile plane. Interesting. When you hold it this way, it hurts your finger here to hit this adjuster knob. So that's a minor issue, but it does hit me there if I hold it this way. If I hold it this way, it's a little better, but it's not as much force. The direction of this is more forward than down, but not exceptionally so that I'm not getting a good grip or anything. And it's actually more comfortable size-wise than holding this, because you don't have any place to put it. So you wind up having to hold this one in your hand like that. And so I have to say that the design of the Veritas, as far as the handle is concerned, makes it a more comfortable plane to use. And again, this piece of oak here, no complaints, and a nice smooth finish. The higher angle plane, no complaints. Also a very good finish. I feel a little bit of the pores, maybe a little tear, but let's see what this does if it changes it when I do this afterwards. Not terribly noticeable, a difference. It might be a hair smoother finish on that. So, have to take that into consideration. All pluses. I don't think I really have anything negative to say about this plane. I like the looks of it. I like the finish of it. I like the quality of it. I like the way it cuts. This is a little irritating with my finger there, but it might be the size of my hand. If I had a son or a daughter, I would definitely buy this for them. I would recommend this plane. I love the idea that you have this adjustable throat for different woods. And so in comparing this to the one style Bailey, it occurred to me that with the low angle and the adjustable throat, that it's a bit more comparable to a Stanley 60½. As you can see here, the length is closer. They both have adjustable throats, although this is a closed in the front and this one extends out. And they both have comparable angles of the blade. Still, the Stanley is a much wider blade compared to the Veritas, the 60½. But I think that, you know, this cuts very well. And this is the 60½. Now, I haven't tuned this up at all. This is straight off my shelf. But you can see it works similarly. It's very comfortable to the palm. So if you have this, I don't think you really need the Veritas, but I still think it's a nice plane, and I think it will do a lot of things that some of the other ones don't. But I think it's closer to the 60½" block plane than it is to a number 1. So in closing, I want to say that this is a really beautiful plane. No real complaints about it. Awkward in the finger hold there, but you can get around that. Everything else is really quite nice about it. But when it's compared with the higher angle number 1s, they're definitely different animals. This is more like the 60½" block plane with the low angle. The adjustment's a little different. Both have the throat adjustability. So in size, they're more similar. The width, if anything, the Stanley has a wider iron and a longer iron, so it'll probably last longer. But this is a very good plane. I have nothing bad to say about it. And I also have been enjoying using it. So there you have it. If you're looking for a smaller, low angle, bevel up, adjustable throat plane, I think this is a nice one. I hope you've gotten something out of the video, and I hope you enjoyed it. I did. Of course, I always enjoy making shavings because it's just something that I enjoy doing. It's a bit addictive, as a matter of fact. But thanks for coming and joining me in the shop. I hope there's some good information here for you to use. I hope you'll subscribe. I hope you'll come back and visit again. Everybody take care.